I'm making a photo book. This video represents my second step in my process. My first step was to choose a camera, and I made a video about why I chose a Leica M film camera, and it's the first video in this series, and I'll put a link to that right here. Now my primary task in step 2 is to pick a topic, or at least to start researching an idea for a topic. And a secondary goal is to practice using my Leica M film camera. So this picture was taken on my Leica M. So this is 35 millimeter, and I shot one roll. This is Ilford's FP4. So I'm getting a little bit of practice while I try to think of a topic for my photo book. And now my great fear is to make a photo book that nobody wants to look at. So I had the idea to do a little bit of market research. So I went to the infamous Lake Oswego Art Festival. So as you see here in this photo, that is art on the left and just some clouds on the right. And now, just in case you're not familiar with the Lake Oswego Art Festival, I'd compare it to like Woodstock, right? There's going to be lots of people, right? All sorts of people from all over, all ages. There's going to be love in the air. Delicious food. The food of rock stars. Right, nothing could be more summer than the Lake Oswego Art Festival. All right, and the people come from all over the world, really. And, right, these are art experts, and these are big spenders, right? This guy had pulled out his calculator and was adding up the price on all 4 of these. All right, so this is big time art, big time names, right? Take a picture of yourself next to the art, right? You want people to know that you were there. Right, my interest here is I want to see, right, what are people interested in, right? What are they buying, right? What are these artists producing that's popular, right? What can I learn from this, right? What should my photo book be about? So it's a combination of, right, what are the artists making and what are the people buying and what are they interested in, right? What are they gravitating towards? Like here, it's, right, of nature, right? I like nature. So I could do a photo book about clouds or waterfalls. And I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I could do, right, the coast, or maybe some evergreen trees, right? But I was paying a lot of attention to, right, what are the consumers, the buyers, what are they interested in? What are they, when they look inside that tent, right, what is it that they see? Right? What are they so intrigued by that they want to stick out their hand and touch it? Now, these were very interesting to many people. I'm not sure what it means for me. I don't know how I would use these things in a photo. So I don't think there's anything for me to learn here. But I don't know. Now, another thing that was very popular were breast and balls. So this man makes these wooden balls and right, takes pieces of wood and puts them together, makes these big balls. And then you see back here, right, he also carves breasts out of like logs. And people really liked these. And I was trying to imagine, right, like maybe I could make a photo book that somehow opened up. It was like a pop-up book, but it opens up into like a sphere. And then you kind of rotate it to look at the pictures or something like that. But then I realized that's probably not the best idea. It's a little cumbersome. Right here, this woman was trying to figure out if she did buy this, how would she get it home, right? Could she put it on her back? So, and she did not buy this. So just sort of, it was a good idea, right? A spherical photo book, but I think ultimately it's just, cumbersome thing. Now, another popular theme, both in terms of what the artists were making, but also what people were very interested in, was just, again, it's nature, but more specifically animals and bears. This guy was really interested in this bear, and the bear looks interested in him. And it reminds me that I recently watched a YouTube video about a bear encounter. And now, like, half of what YouTube recommends to me are bear encounters. And maybe that's happened to this man too, right? And he's also a fan of bear encounters. So I could do a series on bears, but I'd probably rather do a series on cats. Now, is this a house cat, or is that like a baby tiger? Right, and this woman, who's clearly an artist, was looking through all of these photos, right, or paintings. And I looked at them afterwards, and they're all cat pictures. So I really do think that's sort of my leading idea at the moment, is to make a cat photo book. And then birds, right, were popular. And I could see that working, right? I don't know that anybody's ever done bird photography, so I could be like maybe the first person to make a photo book about birds. And then just the theme of nature, right, and trees, right? Trees are very photographic. People like trees. It's like looking at the palm of the earth, right? All the branches and the leaves, right? There's nothing better than looking at a tree. Well, I mean, a painting of a tree. Well, in my case, a photograph of a tree. And there were many examples of nature, right? And it was very inspiring. Like, I could just imagine myself, right, getting out into nature and taking lots of photographs of beautiful places. Yeah, that would really inspire me. And I think people would really enjoy looking at a book of all the neat places that I've been. Now, something else I sort of learned from this experience, and right, do you see the artist there? It's sort of like a little bit of a dance that happens at these art festivals, where you're kind of like going up to ask someone to dance, and maybe you're afraid of, like, as the buyer, potential buyer, do you enter their space? Do you start that conversation, or are you just gonna stay on the periphery and sort of keep your distance? Because this is how it often happens, is like someone's walking around, trying to decide which one they might go into next. But they'll stay on the outside for the most part. Right? They'll really just want to window shop as much as they can before they break through that plane and enter the artist's space. Right, here you can tell she's trying to decide, right, are any of these baskets amazing enough to take one more step into the full shadow? And so what I was seeing a lot of were, right, people halfway in, right, interested, but not quite going in. Right, it's one thing if your art can pull somebody to that threshold, and another if you can actually get them in. You know, they're peeking. Right, this level of engagement I would rate on a 1 to 10. I'd call this a 4. Right, but it's not that 10 of pulling people in. Right, but the artists have learned some tricks. Right, this is not their first rodeo. Right, for example, here, the art is like just inside the tent. You just barely have to step in. And you're looking at the art and you don't even notice that the artist is actually right there, hiding, waiting to peek out, right? And he actually has a little hole. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little hole there. So he can watch you and he'll know just the right moment to pop out and talk to you about his art. But there's even more sophisticated tricks. Like here it's sort of like a gated entry and a bit of a maze inside. And it's just, you find yourself standing by the entry and then all of a sudden you just start gravitating inwards, right? It's just sort of like a maze that you're tempted to enter. And then you get in there and, you get a little bit lost. And then you find your way out and you're like, oh, huh. And then you sort of accidentally walked through the whole space, right? You can see the artist back in here. Can you see the artist? Right? Artist, if you're watching this, I applaud your design. And then there's a style where the art is equally inside and outside, right? And so you start losing a sense of, right, your direction, and you kind of forget where you are, and you just start looking at the art. And now these were powerful pieces. They're very bright and shiny and with radiant crepuscular rays. So I could do that type of like sunsets and trees and nature and those crepuscular rays and very bright. I could see that working in a photo book. And now this artist, right, he was using every square inch of his tent, inside and out, to show his art, which also gave him, right, this sort of clever way to have some adult material, right, on the outside. Give you a little privacy to come check it out, right? But at this point, I'm starting to imagine that maybe I would have a tent, right, at the art festival, maybe even next year, right after I finish my photo book, and I could, I think I would copy this man's style, right? It's like inside, outside, and I want to give him some props because he had my favorite piece, right? And this is no joke, in the art festival, and my black and white film is not doing this justice. This is vivid red and green and yellow and white, really beautiful mixing of colors, thick. but I still wanted to take a picture of it. And it does have me thinking, right? I love how sort of in the foreground, it's less abstract, right? You can make out some people and some boats and some ladders and some houses. And then as you move away, both up the frame and sort of in a feeling of depth, right? It gets more abstract. It has sort of like a bit of cubism to it almost. Yeah, the bird outside my window likes this one too. Right, and I also love this like delicate sun up here behind the clouds. And then this artist, right, he had been doing this for 40 years. And he didn't even have a tent, right? He just had a shade umbrella. And that seemed genius, because then people don't even really know that they've entered your area, right? There is sort of no boundary that you are stepping over. You're already in it. And it makes it easy for, like, you know, your big spenders to come right up to you and talk to you about your art, right? And by the time they come up to the umbrella, like, you're quite close for a nice conversation. And then my roll was about done, so I circled back towards the front, and I found these three people. They were still looking at these, trying to decide which one they wanted. And that sort of clicked something for me of like, these things were so interesting to these people that they had spent, you know, almost an hour looking at it. So I don't quite know what it means for me, you know, but somehow I'm going to try to make my photo book look like these things. So, okay, that's the end of step 2. I don't think I'm done. It feels sort of like I'm researching a topic for my photo book. So, yeah, we'll see what the follow-up to this will be. Yeah, but there's going to be a step 3, right? There's going to be as many steps as it takes for my photo book to be done. Okay, take care.